Welcome to the Bigger, Better, Stronger, Faster podcast. We'll be showcasing local talent that is willing to talk to us in studio and also in video chat. I've been excited to get this podcast started for a while now. We've been working on the studio. We used a couple other podcasts to kind of get it figured out. But we're really hoping that we can really show the area's talent and allow them to get some of the recognition that they deserve. On today's show, we have Dr. Chris Bowmaster, president of the River Cities Symphony Orchestra. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Awesome.
I'm excited for you to get this kicking off the ground. So,
well, thank you.
Pleasure.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate that you were willing to, be the first victim on the show. And I'm super excited to have you.
Definitely.
I've heard a ton about you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's pretty funny. And just for the few minutes that we've hung out so far, we definitely have to hang out some more.
I totally agree.
For sure. So I kind of have a pretty long list of questions. Some of them are in depth, some not so much. Mm-hmm. But we'll just go ahead and kick it off.
Sounds good.
So a lot of this is some things I was, explained to me by some of the people that know you. Yeah. So I understand that your first clarinet teacher at the age of 11 was a disciple of Robert Marcellus, a renowned, long-tenured clarinetist of the Cleveland Orchestra, a biggie in the woodwind world. Were you in awe of such greatness at a young age?
Yeah, so Robert Marcellus, yes, played in the Cleveland Orchestra from the 50s to the 70s, and actually all of my clarinet teachers studied with him. Oh, wow. And so my first clarinet teacher I started with in 5th grade and studied with him until 12th grade, and he actually was my mom's clarinet teacher, and so there's a lot of history because he was a middle school band director, but most middle school band directors don't study privately on their instrument with like the world-renowned clarinetist.
I've never heard of one.
And so being born and raised in Youngstown, it's not a far drive, and so this guy was he was kind of like a father figure in a way also, and this middle school teacher, but coming back to the style of playing that Robert Marcellus did, it was very refined in the sense of, he did a lot of research to make sure that he would try to provide a replica of what the composer wanted from their mind, put it into sound, and relay that to the audience. And so it's very difficult to do that because you kind of have to be selfless.
Right.
You can't really make performance about you, and we'll dive into that a little bit more, but because of that, he taught his students in a way that that was influential to me, and I wanted to be a part of that. And being from Youngstown and around the Cleveland Orchestra and that way of playing, it wasn't just him as a clarinetist, the entire orchestra played that way. And and so I was, given from my first clarinet teacher in middle school and high school, old records of this orchestra playing. And so it's just in me. And so basically, unfortunately he's not with us any longer, but he influenced the clarinet world hands down. And the one big thing, yes, it's through replica of styles, but also clarinet sound.
Yeah.
For years, centuries, since the clarinet was started, there have always been like a couple different schools of clarinet playing, and they're kind of determined based on the type of sound or tone you can create on the clarinet, and and so his kind was kind of an American French type sound. French meaning, and this is going to sound really nerdy. Your audience members can be like, oh my goodness. And so his from the French school of playing, it's more of a focus oriented, like a laser type of sound, as opposed to the old school of German sound is more dark and kind of fat.
Kind of bluesy?
Not even bluesy. Okay. It's just more like instead of highs, more lows in the sound oriented. Okay. And so basically the French school came to America, and those clarinets started being hired, and so but they had to adjust because the concert halls here in this country are larger, and so they had to figure out how to project sound further, a further distance, because everybody's a paying customer when they attend a concert. And so basically this type of sound was created as the American French school style, but Robert Marcellus kind of took it a step further and was obsessed with sound. He actually, it's funny, I've heard like stories about how much he hated his sound, but everybody else in the clarinet world thought he was a god. So, talk about a dynamic, like a personal battle, like this person never really was pleased with it, but you have to understand the concept of what he actually heard in his head that he couldn't achieve. And so, with like the ability to replicate styles of composers and the sound, that kind of moved, my teachers studied with him for that reason, and then I just fell in love with that, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I didn't realize I was going to say that much.
Yeah, that's okay. So, like when you say like the fatter sound, like is that kind of where it leans like closer to more like a sax, that sax sound,
actually,
deeper sound?
You know what? You're actually correct.
Okay.
Because there's a way of playing the clarinet that to achieve Robert Marcellus's sound, that actually involves the position of the tongue while you're playing.
Oh, wow.
And so in order to play saxophone correctly, you have to actually lower the tongue position in order to do that. And so the German school, like that way of playing the darker sound, that's how you get that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's...
Which do you prefer?
For me, it's the more focused, the higher tongue position. And it's because you have a larger palette of sound or tone possibilities. And when I say replicate the styles of a composer, you're not just doing that, it's also like there are different sound properties that you try to do. Like when I play a German composer, I do want to sound a little bit darker in sound, but not as the old school German sound of clarinet playing. So there is like this, I'm like this focused American French clarinetist, but it doesn't go off the rails into a whole other school of playing. It's just slightly adjusted depending on the composer that I'm playing.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
It does a lot. Yeah.
So, and you can even, just vowel sounds. Like literally if I say my tongue is lower. That's kind of how you play more of a saxophone. Whereas like when how I'm trained to play clarinet is E. When you say the letter E, the tongue position is way higher. Yeah. So, and those two subtle things will create two completely different sounds on a clarinet.
Yeah. I tried to play a sax one time.
One time?
My brother played all the saxes.
You were so good, you just had to walk away, you're like, I'm done.
Nope, it was so bad, I didn't even try ever again. I don't know. I got into the trombone a little bit. Yeah. Unfortunately, the band director did not want to teach that much, so
got it.
I quickly switched over to drums, but a way different. It's all lips with trombone as opposed to tongue.
Yep.
Yeah. So I never really figured out that.
Yeah, I mean, we use the lips. I mean, we use it all, but it is, how you blow the air and how it's focused internally.
Right.
That really creates it.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that explains why I was so bad. My brother didn't tell me any of that stuff.
Man, he let you down.
He did. Maybe he didn't want me to get better than him. I don't know.
It's brotherly love at its finest, right?
So true. So true. Well, I think we can move on to the next question.
Cool.
Why did you choose to play the clarinet at such a young age? Why not drums or guitar?
This is an excellent question that kind of ties into the last one. So when I was growing up, my mom was like, I started piano when I was 5.
Okay.
And so music.
Did she lead you to that?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. No. She.
Musical family.
Yeah, kind of. Not really, but yes, in a way. Like my grandma and my grandfather made sure that they always studied music, her and her siblings growing up. And so she wanted to do the same thing for us. My brothers studied piano. They didn't do anything with it, but she still made sure at that same age, hey, you're going to do this. And there's actually an old VHS tape that my mom made of, in Youngstown, because our piano teacher was our next door neighbor. And so there's a video of me walking in a blizzard through our front yard with my books above my head because I was so short then.
Yeah.
There's like 1.5 feet, 2 feet of snow. I'm trying to get over to this, to this piano lesson in a complete blizzard. But because of all of that, my mom, like I told you, she studied clarinet with my first clarinet teacher in middle school and high school. She played clarinet that much time and during middle school and high school, and so I kind of did the cool thing, like, oh, my mom played clarinet, I guess I'll try it out. And then thankfully she contacted that same teacher and was like, hey, here you go, and I just ran with it.
Nice.
But it is it did come from a sense of like, oh, my mom's cool, I think I want to try the same instrument.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how cool that really is, but that's where it came from.
In my eyes, I think to think that your mom is cool would be amazing.
She's an amazing woman. I'm a fortunate guy, so.
Yeah. That is awesome. I went to a whole lot of foster homes, so there were some interesting families in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely some interesting ones. But yeah, so, that was a great answer. Absolutely. For me, like I said, I thought about the sax because my brother was cool too. I mean, if they'd have had an electric guitar, I would have played that in the band. But he did actually figure out how to talk the band director later in high school into letting him play the electric guitar in the jazz band. But so it went like I did try the guitar a little bit. Tried the sax. It was both huge failures, by the way. I don't know, just way too many notes or too many thoughts, I guess. And then
you don't have a sax just laying around here somewhere?
No, I don't even have a trombone, and I played that for at least a few months, but I was so glad to put that thing down. And then a friend of mine in the band, was like, you should just come over here, like, we'll teach you how to play the drums. If the teacher doesn't want to teach you, we'll teach you. So I was like, that sounds way better than sitting here bored,
Yeah, definitely.
And stepped on, over there and fell in love completely.
Yeah.
And I was a fidgeter, so I was that kid over there, tapping on his chest all the time, legs, foot tapping all the time, constantly. So
same here.
It fit and made sense, know.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, you kind of you hit a little bit on the music talent in your family. You said your brother. You said
both
he
brothers
played a little bit.
Yeah,
of piano.
they just played piano because just following suit. But they didn't really. They didn't do anything. Yeah. Okay. But to be truthful, my youngest brother was probably the most talented out of all of us. Yeah. At music.
Does he ever play at all now?
No
bands or anything, huh?
No.
Wow.
Nothing. He just does investing.
Yeah.
That's his music.
Very interesting.
But my mom on occasion will still, because she played piano really well as well. I mean, she started learning that at a young age too. Yeah. On occasion, she'll still be able to sit down and remember parts of pieces that she played when she was like 13.
Wow.
And that's without practicing. I mean, she probably hasn't practiced piano since she was 18. She's 66 now.
Wow.
But it's still in there. That's the crazy thing about music, and just being the ability to remember things like that. Yeah. It's wild. But
I don't feel the same way about drums.
No,
I don't know that I was ever that great at drums either.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was. I never got really good at it, so I guess it never felt all that natural to me.
No.
I never really learned how to read all the music either.
Know. Then I'm going to ask him to come and play with I'm going to ask you to come play with my pet band one day, and it'd be like,
if you have no judgment, I will come and play. Absolutely, I will absolutely come beat some drums for you.
There we go.
Yep. It's been a while. I won't lie, but I think the last things I've played is usually like something, a single drum of some sort at a drum circle somewhere.
Yeah.
It's probably the last thing I've done in the last 10 years.
You have those here.
Oh, I know. Wow. I've been to a couple.
Have you?
We actually went to a festival recently at Legend Valley, and there was a really neat drum circle there. Oh, wow. I didn't play in it. I did stand in.
Legend Valley? Is that in Ohio?
It is. It's off on the same exit as Buckeye Lake.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know exactly where you are.
It's kind of right off the exit too.
Really?
Yeah. It's why the bathrooms on that exit have porta potties, because all the festival goers go there, and they are not letting them in that bathroom for any reason.
That's funny.
It is.
Wow.
Yeah, all the bathrooms around there have those. It's funny. All right, so according to your bio, how long did you play in Mexico? What was the culture like, and were you ever tempted to stay there?
Whew, man, I read this question when you sent it to me, and I was like, this is a loaded question. And so I was there for 2 years. I was freshly out of undergrad, and I took the audition actually when I was finishing up, and I got the job. Next thing I know, because I didn't even have a passport, and the conductor was like, hey, I need you here in 2 weeks. And I'm like, well, okay. So I flew to Chicago, because you can get, passports basically rush ordered. Yeah. And so I flew to Chicago to make sure that happened. And actually, this is the funny thing. When I first purchased the plane flight, I purchased it to go to the wrong city.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I sent the itinerary to the conductor, like, let him know. He's like, yo, Chris, this isn't going to fly, man. Like, this is not where you're actually trying to go. And so I lived in Culiacan, Sinaloa.
Oh, wow. So you confuse that.
Do you know them? You know El Chapo, like, that's his home base, basically.
Yeah.
Well, it was. And, but even though, I experienced some things down there, man. Like, not so much, primarily one that affected me personally in my entire time there. I'll just say this. I loved living there.
Yeah. I
still have great friends that I communicate with regularly. Some of the best food I've ever had in my life. It's more like mariscos and like seafood, but it's, instead of cooked, it's like disinfected with lime juice, so it's cooked, but and so it's just raw seafood.
Wow.
And I'm talking like little restaurants that when the tide goes down or the tide starts coming up, you're sitting in water basically finishing your dinner.
Oh wow,
and
that's really neat.
Yeah, and so I guess the only bad experience I had was when actually a war started, basically. But this is the crazy thing. Like, the people don't realize. Like, I get it because I don't know. Growing up in Youngstown, I grew up with the Youngstown mob. Like, in the '80s, car bombs going off downtown. I don't know. When you grow up in it and you're around it, you just think differently about this stuff. So I went from Youngstown to Culiacan, Sinaloa. And it's like not that different, but but a war breakout. Like, I'll never forget it. One day, all of a sudden, we were on a curfew. Our concert stopped for like a couple weeks. Cartel members are hanging banners on bridges and actually putting notes on people's doors, like, "Hey, don't go out of your house or apartment at this time, because something's going to go down right outside your building."
Yeah.
And the one time I remember just, tons of gunfire going off and explosions. So I go up on the top of my apartment building, and I can actually hear ammo, like bullets flying over my head. The next day I found out that there were 600 soldiers trying to take down a safe house with grenade launchers, and I mean, it's just like, you don't really understand what's taking place. It's kind of like a rush a little bit.
Right.
Not for the right reasons or anything, you know what I mean? It's like, but just being in that environment and but understanding the people and how loving they are and how much they love life regardless of how much they have,
Yeah.
It's crazy that stuff like that can take place, and
I bet after living in this country it's hard to believe, for sure.
Yeah, and well, that was the other thing that always cracked me up. I actually had some culture shock when I returned. Yeah. Because everything down there, time oriented, was an ish.
Yeah. That sounds like the disc golf world.
This concert is scheduled for 7:30 ish. We didn't know exactly when it was going to start, but that's the time that they marketed. But who knows, And it was an adjustment to get used to, but it was more of an adjustment coming back here, where it's not like that. If you're not early, you're not on time here, and so that was a huge adjustment. So yeah, but
so do your friends get upset with you when you're late here?
a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure you did today. Just
No. No,
Leslie's over there cracking up.
I live in the disc
I will
golf
throw
world.
this White Claw can at you.
No, she's part of it because no, I live in the disc golf world where I am so used to every single person I know being late that I'm gonna say something. You know what I mean?
You all need
People
to
always said something to me, but I definitely understand because I mean I'm busy too.
Yeah.
I actually a couple years ago worked on being late. I should have just gone to Mexico, I guess.
Yeah,
because
it sounds like you all need to take a trip down there.
Oh yeah, I can see where that would help a ton of people. Absolutely. Yeah.
You'll be right on time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I used to be like I'd be like 15 minutes early, and disc golfers, they're like, if you're within the hour, that's good. You know,
man, that's amazing.
So I'm like an hour and 15 minutes early. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, this is not cool. I got way better stuff to be doing.
Yeah,
So
just sitting there.
I just learned to just show up late.
Yeah.
Like no one will even notice.
Yeah.
You know, because my late is like 30 minutes at most, so no one even notices that. So.
You can only take so many warm-up throws too, like, before you throw out your arm or something.
That's it. Yeah. Before you get bored too. That's the other part. You start sweating. You know, you're like,
right?
We haven't even started. I'm already sweating. You know?
I work out already? What was this?
Exactly.
I wasn't planning on going to the gym. I was just going to throw some frisbee golf, but here I am.
Exactly.
Where's the towel?
Yeah, and that's a lot of times what it would happen. You know, you'd basically feel like you played 2 rounds because the warm up took the same amount as the round did. So
That's priceless, man.
yeah.
Hey, you know what? I can totally relate though, because I'm not lying. For concerts, like I would, same thing. I go early to warm up.
Yeah.
And I would over warm up sometimes. And it's like, and it's dangerous because you can like not blow out your face or anything, but like they get tired. It's the same thing.
Oh, I bet.
And if it was a heavy concert that we were playing, sometimes there were a couple times where I was nervous coming at the end because there's no, in my world there are not mistakes.
No,
like
right,
you miss one note, you're not getting hired again, or you're on the chopping block.
I bet.
But it's funny, that same thing. It would mess with me as well.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
I would imagine the chopping block for a clarinetist would be extremely hard. Like, I bet there's a lot of you.
There are a lot, especially nowadays. And when it's highly competitive. Music in general now.
Yeah, why not? I mean, what a job. You know?
It is.
What a job.
It's a blast playing in orchestras. I love it, but it is stressful at times.
I'll bet.
I mean, there are so many rules to ensemble playing.
Yeah.
That we don't even really have to get into, just because it's so it's ridiculous. You have to. It's wild how many things. Well, going back to Robert Marcellus, I'll say this. In an interview one time, somebody asked him, well, what do you think about while you're playing? And he's like, well, naturally, everything at once. And that's like a list of probably 200 things, that we're supposed to be doing all in a split second right away. But it's not even like it's just in coast mode. Like we have to adjust on the fly. Like I kind of call it trench warfare. Like every concert, we're going to war. Like with my buddies, like who's going to save each other more? Because every attack, every time you start a note, no matter what level you're playing at, it's not going to be 100% perfect or exactly where you want it every time. So if you have to enter with somebody, you kind of have to like save them a little bit.
Yeah.
And so meaning like you can just talk about
kind of like singing too. I mean,
yeah. And so like just as an example, like pitch frequency. So we tune to 440. Okay.
Yeah.
Say there's a certain note on the oboe that rides high or rides sharp, and just naturally. But say it was hotter in the concert hall that day. Reeds are being more difficult, and everything changes based on climate. And so this oboist that I'm supposed to start one single note with in unison is just a little sharp.
Right.
And so I have to adjust to that in a split second, so you don't actually hear that it's out of tune for a split second.
Yeah.
And like that's just a little example.
Right.
So,
I get that.
That's what we do constantly, like every split second of audible sound throughout the entire concert. It's that detail oriented.
Yeah, that's
and
rough.
so the more people you involve that or incorporate into the sounds that you're hearing, just the more issues you're trying to save.
Right,
or fix and correct. And
yeah, you better be able to hear really well. That's something. I mean, I only know that just from singing. You know, like there is those little tiny adjustments when you break out into a note for sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So that's rough. And,
well, and getting back to Mexico, actually, it's funny. So the climate there was so crazy. In Culiacan, it was sea level, or no, it was desert, like desert heat. And so I would actually have to have, but we played a lot in Mazatlan. Have you ever heard of Mazatlan?
I have, absolutely, yeah.
And so that was kind of our second home. And so we would play on Friday night in Culiacan and then travel on most Saturdays and play in Mazatlan.
Wow.
I would have to have two different like bags of reeds, because if I took the ones from Culiacan and used them in Mazatlan and then came back to Culiacan, they would die. They wouldn't even play because of the amount of humidity level difference.
Makes sense.
So I had to have like travel reeds.
Like, what is the humidity down there like?
In Mazatlan, it was right on the ocean, so it's right on the Pacific, so 80, 90 every day.
All the time. Huh?
But in Culiacan, when it wasn't the raining season, which was actually just summertime, it was bone dry. Like it wouldn't rain from from late October until May. Not even a drop.
Yeah, that's rough. Oh man, that's super rough.
Yeah, so
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you know that like woodworkers have similar issues, you know, and so yeah, I know that I used to know a woodworker that traveled with his craft, you know, and sold it at a lot of different places, and he had every complaint about, you know, moisture in the air and humidity and blah blah blah. Yeah, he wouldn't, and like a lot of his stuff wouldn't even work in some places, you know. Like he'd be like, "No, I built this in a dry climate," you know what I mean? Like now it's all swelled up, it won't even slide like it's supposed to, you know.
Exactly.
So yeah, it makes sense. That's funny. So I think the last part of that question was, did you ever think of moving there?
Yeah, actually, that decision to come back was difficult.
Yeah,
I will tell you that. I really, really, it was very, very difficult. And the only reason it was, I'll say this, it had nothing to do with the life I had. There were things taking place in the orchestra that I didn't agree with. They were going in a direction that was not what I wanted to really be a part of in the end, even though I loved it. I was thankful. I had amazing friends, you know. There were a lot of people that left at the same time that I thought were the backbone of that orchestra when we were there, and so I made that decision too. And it led to me going down and getting more degrees, which was actually a good thing, and, you know, got me here to Marietta, but we can get into that more. But yes, I really, really, really considered staying there.
I bet. I know that whole area is gorgeous.
Yes, and, it really is.
Yeah, it's an interesting country, but there's definitely some absolutely beautiful places there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you know, the one thing I prided myself on is I went into it not thinking that I was a tourist. I wanted to experience the culture. Yeah. Who are these people? Not what can, you know, I didn't want them to look at me like, oh, I'm just here to think that you're my backyard. Right. Which is a typical thing, you know. They're used to that. I've heard that from many people. Oh, Americans just come down to, you know, we're party backyard type place. Not everybody's like that, but it was I'm fortunate. I feel fortunate that I was able to actually be a part of that culture, and it was an amazing experience that I'm so happy that I got to have.
Yeah,
it changes you as a person.
Yeah, I agree. I know one of the main things I learned. I traveled in Mexico a little bit in the Navy. One of the things that hit me the most was that Mexicans are definitely trying to speak English, but we don't care at all about their language. Yeah. You know, like we're forced to do it in school. I took 2 years of Spanish. Yeah. I didn't learn a thing. I went to Mexico and couldn't speak 10 words, you know. And I was super disappointed with myself when I realized how much they actually cared, you know.
Yeah, and you're right. I would say probably more than 50% of the
Oh,
people
yeah.
that I interacted
I
with
feel
could
the
speak
same
English.
way.
But
Yeah.
they wouldn't let me though. They're like, you have to learn our language, which
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
respected.
Me
'Cause
too.
I wanted to learn it too.
Me too,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and it was funny though. I see. I didn't have Spanish in high school,
Yeah.
and I took German.
The worst Spanish in high school. It was like in a booklet. You didn't even you have to speak it really.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
had to read it sometimes.
And it was interesting. Like, well, I just had a group of friends that thought I was funny and I got along with. And so every time I learned a new word, I would just walk around and say this new word. They probably thought I was crazy, but whatever. I started learning the language, but it was really interesting. Our principal trumpet player at the time, he was from Oaxaca, and so his first language wasn't Spanish.
Oh wow!
It was ancient Aztec Indian language. I think it was called Michai.
Oh wow!
And so so he spoke Spanish as a second language.
That's awesome.
As a Mexican. And Oaxaca was one place I never got to go that I want to sometime before I don't have the ability to do any longer.
Yeah.
That's definitely a thing on my checklist to do. So.
Yeah. What's there that you're hoping to find?
Just a different. It's not your standard Mexico from what I've learned and interacting with this person. His name was Hector, and it's like he learned music in a mountain, and he actually started on clarinet until he was out of high school, and then randomly picked up the trumpet, and then like turned into this fantastic trumpet player. But it's like Oaxacan chocolate. It's cocoa. It's famous there.
Yeah.
It's just super traditional Aztec. They try to retain that culture a little bit. So, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Mm.
Yeah. So let's move on to the next one.
Sure.
Let's go. Yeah. So I understand that you repair clarinets, and I'm curious because, like, when I look at an instrument such as that, a sax or even a trumpet or anything like that, how in the world would you repair something like that?
Well, yeah. So I never thought I would be doing that, and it's kind of led to other things. So when I started my doctorate at WVU, I started, I think, the fall of 2012, and the year was about to end, and I was, trying to figure out what I was going to do for the summer, and I had this random idea to contact somebody that had previously worked on one of my clarinets to see if he did any type of assistantship work or anything. Do you teach anybody this line of work? And he was a former student of my teachers at WVU as well. So it's kind of like this, connection.
Yeah.
And basically he said, no, I don't teach anybody. I've never done this before, but maybe if you come, I'll teach you a thing or two.
Yeah.
And so it was unpaid,
Right.
I bartended in Salisbury, Maryland, where the business was located on the Eastern Shore, and just learned little things along the way. However, him and I are like brothers now. His name is Wes Rice. The company is called Rice Clarinet Works.
Okay.
So we actually own like a CNC milling machine, CNC lathe. We manufacture clarinet parts.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, like
I was like, you just buy new parts and put them on, basically.
We make them now.
Okay.
And so like I design clarinet mouthpieces with him that we sell to clients all over the place. So I do clarinet repair in my basement just for friends here and there.
Yeah.
And that entails like replacing a pad that covers a tone hole or this and that.
Right.
That's not really what I enjoy as much as doing the clarinet part designing, to be truthful.
Yeah.
The mouthpiece work is something that I've really fallen in love with. And it gets back into that conversation we were having about tongue position and that I...
Right. So you can manipulate that with a mouthpiece.
Yes,
Oh,
the dimensions and measurements all throughout the entire mouthpiece. And
That's fascinating. Because I wonder, I always wondered about it because I have a huge mouth, and there was definitely instruments that I felt like, this is not fitting on me at all.
Yeah.
Trombone, I have enormous lips, and trying to squeeze them into that little, mouthpiece. I probably should have had a bigger mouthpiece.
Well, and for clarinet, it gets even. So remember that E and ah sounds, sounds that I was making earlier. So with mouthpiece work, if you take a mouthpiece, and this gets into reeds a little bit. Reeds are different densities. There's some that are harder, some that are softer, and everything in between. If you put a really hard reed, something that isn't vibrant, onto a mouthpiece, not really dependent on the measurements of the mouthpiece if it's that hard, you cannot blow the air and focus the sound in an E position with your tongue. The air will not go through in the manner that you need it and build back pressure and automatically drop your tongue to the ah position.
Interesting.
So the more vibrant of the reed that you have allows your tongue to go higher and control and focus the air internally through the mouthpiece, because the mouthpiece is in a measurement throughout that allows the reed to vibrate in a different manner. Gotcha. And so so it is this, but it's also dependent on what is the mouthpiece, how is it designed, and what is it designed to do.
Are they mostly made of the same product, like plastic or whatever?
So we use a hard rubber, and traditionally throughout the clarinet world, and over time, it's always been a hard rubber that has been characteristic of creating the best sound qualities. Okay. And we actually have to get the rubber from Germany. The APA will not allow us to manufacture it here. But whatever. That's a conversation for another time. But we get in these rubber rods and just cut them down and shape them on the milling on the lathe. Okay. And then put them in the milling machine, and there we go. So basically, the milling machine will create a blank, and then I hand finish everything.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
And so, what kind of adjustments do you make on it? I mean,
there are very, very
tons of different ones. I mean, is every mouthpiece just slightly different?
Yes, okay. And to the thousandths of an inch.
Oh wow!
But the thing is those matter.
I bet they do.
It's crazy how.
And so,
they matter. How
fast they slope up and stuff. That is.
Yeah. So a sax mouthpiece, right?
Yeah.
So they won't even understand. But so
I might be able to look one up.
So every mouthpiece where you put the reed, if this hand here is the mouthpiece, they're all curved like this. And the reed's here vibrating. All right. So the lesser of the curve that you have, the harder of a reed you can put on, but the more open this is, the more vibrant reed you need. And so, in order
that makes sense, because the tighter it is, the more it's going to cause it to vibrate.
Well, it's going to travel a smaller distance,
right?
Because that curve is lesser.
Gosh.
But there's even more refined things that will create a certain tone quality. That's the interesting part for me. And so I designed the mouthpieces, or me and my friend Wes Rice, we designed these mouthpieces to create the sound quality that we are looking for and have learned throughout our entire clarinet studying time. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
And it comes back to the tonal concepts of what Robert Marcellus had, and so it's this lineage that we're still, even now, we're designing mouthpieces with that sound concept in mind,
and probably that make it easier to do that sound concept.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
to
and
me.
if the dimensions aren't correct, it's impossible to have that same kind of sound. To be truthful.
I'm trying to get
at least
image, but it's not working
in my
well.
experience. It's all right.
Yeah. I'm going to give up on it anyway, so I don't mess up the stream here. Yeah, I think,
It's probably the craziest conversation you ever had.
Definitely. Well, it's definitely interesting. I never would have put a lot of thought into all that. It's kind of like it's every sport at this point. It's every sport. It's every musician. Guitars have gone. From night and day to what they used to be. The different wah-wah boxes and stuff they can come up with these days.
Yeah.
Disc golf, for instance, is they've figured out exact edges to create this flight or that flight on almost any disc. You know what I mean? So they can make it a specific weight. It has that edge, so it's going to do this.
Exactly.
So I can imagine mouthpieces for instruments have gone. Night and day from when we were kids. I'm sure, and that would be so nice for the musician, because you don't have to try so hard to do some of these sounds. Like guitarists, they just put some type of attachment on their guitar, and all of a sudden it makes a different sound.
Yeah.
I bet clarinetists have probably been dreaming of that for years.
Yeah, and still there are still many different schools, many different ideas of what the clarinet should sound like.
Is there
I'm not saying there's
amp
one
for clarinets? Do they do electric clarinet at all?
There is a thing, yes.
Okay. I was wondering.
I've never done it. Usually, we should at least in my experience, we should be able to carry over the orchestra. But if you're playing an Oktoberfest gig, who knows, you might need one there. So, and
then some of the distortion you could do with it, I would imagine would be super
because
cool.
There are so basically mouthpiece, barrel, and then the rest of the clarinet. There are barrels that have mic hookups now.
Oh wow!
And so
very nice.
And I've seen them. I just haven't used one myself.
Right.
No.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I'm learning stuff. I love learning.
But you're right, though. You brought up. Actually, I was thinking right before you said it about how the frisbees.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You take a little piece out of whatever spot on that thing, and it's going to fly differently.
Well, and brand new, it flies one way. You hit a few trees, put a nick in it, notch in it, and it flies a whole different way.
That's true.
And golf balls, they actually fly further the more nicks and dings they get in them.
Yeah.
Which seems so weird.
Do you golf a lot?
I do not. I suck at it. Another thing I suck at, actually. Thanks for bringing it up.
Well, I'm not the greatest, but actually, I've golfed quite a bit this summer, and I don't know, maybe we can figure out a time to go.
Only if you suck bad, because that's the only people I'm trying to play with.
I just try to have fun.
That's all I'm going. I'm having fun.
Let me tell you this.
If you expect me to hit the green, I'm not doing it. I'm just telling you.
I'll tell you this. The last time I went with a friend of mine. We forgot to get a scorecard in the first 9.
Oh, that's me.
So we just had a blast, a couple beers, and
I'm definitely not taking
around
a
the
score.
turn, got a hot dog, a couple more beers, and then we got a scorecard, but it didn't even matter at that point.
No, I'm good without that scorecard. I don't want to see how bad it was at the end, because it's usually bad. I didn't go to even think about the score, because hitting the ball, enjoying the nature, and golf courses are beautiful. They made them that way, so always fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's move on to which do you like better, teaching or performing?
Oh man, this is funny. Also, these were great questions.
Thank you.
I'm serious.
I got a lot of help with them. I'm not gonna lie. Martha helped me.
She's fantastic. She's a new member on our board actually now.
Yeah.
So we just voted her in.
You should have. She's a go-getter.
I'm excited to see. I know she's gonna be busy, but she's just a thinker. She's a creator.
Yeah, she really is.
But it's it's kind of ties into the last question.
Okay.
It gets into that. And I don't know what order you want to do.
We can do it now and then tie into the last one. Yeah. I don't mind that at all, actually.
Are there things you want to ask in between? Or, all right, so, I've always been a performer. And I actually started teaching clarinet privately when I was a senior in high school, too. So I've done those two things my entire life. I love playing in orchestras. I love playing in chamber music. Solo recitals are okay. I just kind of get bored with them.
Yeah.
I like to share the stage with more people.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I dislike
team player.
them.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, there's just more colors and sounds to play with.
Right. Right.
And so
more stuff to pay attention to.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, it's like my toy room got bigger.
Yeah.
How can we, what can we do with this? And so, but I will say this, since accepting this presidency of the River City Symphony Orchestra, it's touching on something with me that I didn't really know about myself. I love building. I love building this organization.
Yeah.
I love being a leader, and it's kind of like I didn't realize how much of a CEO mentality or mindset that I really have in me.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, I'm growing with it. And so it doesn't mean that I dislike performing and teaching. I'm just learning a whole new thing about myself through this that I think I might like a little more, but I don't know if that's because it's new and we're generating.
How old are you?
I'm 38.
Okay.
So,
I think I definitely went through some of those same changes where, I was more of an athlete, just wanted to play, and then I was always a coach too. I started coaching in
what'd you play?
High school basketball, soccer.
Oh, okay. All right.
Pretty much my whole life.
Yeah.
And disc golf came way later, maybe 10 or 12 years ago. Cool. But basketball and soccer, love coaching both of them. Yeah. Played them pretty much since I was 5.
Yeah.
To the point where, I would argue that I know more about basketball than most people I've ever met, at least, and a lot of the coaches I watch, because I've been deep in the bench. I've been on the bench. I've been out on the field. In high school, I was never on the bench. I don't even know what that is like in high school. But after that, definitely lots of bench time. And as I got older, even more bench time. But so that really put me in that mindset of the coach. And then I wanted, once I wasn't playing as much, now I want to know everything the coach is doing. I already know everything about the player and what they're supposed to do and all that.
Yeah.
And then it was, I want to coach, so now I got to figure out how to organize a whole league. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to, coach for the leagues that are running, so I want to do a little better, and so now I got to do that part. And now I'm on the board of the Marietta Youth League.
Oh, really?
So yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So I just
wow, that's perfect.
Yeah, I just I'm the same way. I learned late that I should have been a leader all this time, and when I was in high school, I was kind of loner, so I wasn't really the follower or whatever, but just kind of had my own weird ideas of what I should be doing, and it never fit into any groups or anything, and so I was kind of a outcast a lot, but I never cared, I didn't, it was. I didn't get the energy from that. I wasn't soaking up that energy. So
I get it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I totally understand. And the other thing is this kind of ties into how I even end up in Marietta, and my experience of.
Oh, I'm totally curious.
This is a long answer. I don't really know how to tell it in a short version.
No,
but it's
please do.
Because it touches on growing up as a musician in Youngstown, and being a part or having the ability to grow up around great musicians that were my age, being close to the Cleveland Orchestra and that way of playing, and coming here. Actually, to be truthful, growing up in Youngstown, before I got to get a job here, I had never even heard of Marietta. I didn't even know. I had no, and it blew my mind that it's only 2.5 hours south of Youngstown, basically.
Yeah.
I'm like, Mom, how have we never heard of this place? Oh, we just didn't go there. That's not because there was any bad reasoning behind it or anything. It was just I'd never heard of it, and so I get here and I'm like, wow, what is this community? And in my mind, I see a community thriving right now, even with. Yeah, we're coming out of COVID or back into it. Who knows what's going to happen right now? But still, this community finds ways to be involved, be alive, in my opinion. I mean, I think Marietta Main Street does a great job.
Absolutely.
Christy's amazing. We work closely with her. And so, just all the festivals, and there's just always stuff happening here.
I know, 2 years ago, there was a festival almost every weekend.
Yeah.
Almost every weekend in town.
I don't know.
That's great.
I'm just not used to that.
Yeah.
I've been to other cities, and I've lived in other places, and I don't know. It's just it's a different vibe here, and maybe it's something with me. I don't know. And so because of that, I've continued to ask myself, why is classical music not more influential here? I'm not saying that it's not, but knowing what else is out there in the state of Ohio, why is this corner of the state not? It doesn't really have to be equal, but why is it not closer to it?
Yeah.
And like my past president, because we're coming up on our 25th anniversary this year, and the person that came before me poured his heart and soul into this organization, and but the thing is he worked so much outside of it, and I do too. But it was kind of just like 2 concerts a season, and I think that's not bad. It's amazing that there's even a professional orchestra here, to be truthful.
Right.
And they're good quality. But it's to really turn this into what I envision. It's I've kind of done it on 3 things: visibility, relatability, and quality. And we've performed the last 2 First Fridays, July and August. We're actually going to have the full orchestra perform on Putnam in front of People's Bank Theater.
Nice.
And it's going to be a Pops concert, but it's still, outside, I want people to know that we're here.
Yeah.
I want people to know that we're engaged in the community. I want people to know that classical music is a serious thing. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And this ties into.
Yeah, I don't see it going anywhere.
Well, and this ties into.
It's been around longer than any other music.
Exactly, and this ties into So I think I told you I'm a music professor at Marietta College too.
Yeah.
And so part of my contract is actually I'm a recruiter for the music department, and so I go around to high schools and give clinics and name it, I've done it.
Yeah.
And the one thing it's just the students aren't. It's just, the numbers aren't the same as they are in other places where I've seen in Ohio. The number of students that are involved in music study, and so
Gotcha.
I just think there's something missing, as in the common person around here having an understanding that music is important. Not that they think it's not important, but specifically classical music, studying an instrument in some capacity.
Right.
And so I kind of want to change that.
Yeah.
I want to change the culture of that here in the Mid-Ohio Valley. And I think, the one way to do that is just have more concerts. Now, that means more money, but my board even, it's funny, I love my board to death, and we just welcomed 4 new members. Martha's one of them. But they're well, where are you going to get the money from? Don't ask me that. We're going to do concerts. I'll find it. I don't even want to hear it. I'll figure it out. Because we have to have the concerts. If you don't have the concerts, people can't hear you. You can't build that foundation and trust with the community. They don't know you're there.
I agree.
And so it's all about that right now. And and I don't know. But it comes back to me. It's that performance / teacher question.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm I want to turn this into something. I want to put this organization on the map. I want another idea. So just a couple other things that we're looking forward to doing or trying to figure out how to do for 2022 is I want to have a concert where we show a movie and the orchestra's playing the entire score while the movie's playing. Cool. I've done that with other orchestras, played Star Wars. Show Star Wars, and we played the entire score.
Yeah.
The other thing is...
I'll be there for that.
And the other thing is, have you ever heard of the band Red, Wanting Blue at all?
Mm-mm.
So Red, Wanting Blue kind of grew out of Athens, the Ohio University area. And one of my friends that I went to undergrad with is their drummer. And so I'm going to try to work with their agent to hopefully be the first orchestra that they perform with.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so, but those are kind of those are things that I want to do. It touches on the relatability factor of understanding, like, hey, this is, 50% of this community probably doesn't even know what an orchestra is. Right. They're not going to go hear Beethoven out of the blue. Like, they've read some flyer, like, oh, wow, like, that's what that sounds like. No, they don't want to do that. If they see Star Wars featuring River Cities Symphony Orchestra, that gets them in the door. Right. So that's like the first step of education right there.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? And then, and it's not like I'm trying to remove the classical concerts. It's more of like, how do I get them in the door? And so,
I'll agree with you, because Metallica got me back in the door of classical music. So I listened to it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I quit for probably 20 years. They came out with an album where they had, a full orchestra. Yeah. I'm a huge Metallica fan, so it instantly was like, man, if I like this with classical, then why am I not listening to classical music anymore?
Exactly. Yeah, and it
definitely got me back into listening to it.
It touches on that little thing, you know what I mean? Yeah. You relate to it.
Absolutely.
It removes the elitist stature a little bit. And
that's probably what got me out of it a little bit, is like, I don't want any of that or anything to do with it. You know what I mean? So I was kind of like, oh, well, that's the only people that listen to that. So if I'm rolling down the street jamming to Beethoven, then I'm, a rich jerk. Yeah. You know what I mean? But if you're rolling down the street listening to Metallica with an orchestra in the background, you're not a rich jerk anymore.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like, and I will tell you this, like, when I listen to orchestral music, I'm listening to completely different things than like somebody going to hang out and have a nice glass of wine or whatever. And the other thing with these concerts, with the relatability factor, it's like we've dressed down, like, I'm like white shirt, khaki pants, and I told some of my colleagues, like, I don't even care what pants you wear. Like, wear any color. It's like, it doesn't matter. These are outdoor concerts. Even though we're playing classical music, we're still like, we want to keep it normal. I don't want to have that gap any longer, Yeah. And so, but coming back to it, is I think these types of concerts, the rock band, movies, are going to get more people into our classical concerts when we have them. I don't think we're going to have more than 3, traditionally orchestral concerts, but I don't think we need more. But I think we need more of the other stuff in between.
Right.
And in order for those to really be successful. And, this is what me and the board are trying to do.
Yeah.
Whether it works or not, who knows? But I'll tell you what, the feedback has been unreal so far, even just in 2 months of trying to do this.
Well, I would, if you shoot me a text on when you guys have stuff going on, if I have any kind of podcast coming up, I will announce anything you send me.
I'll tell you right now, September 3rd,
okay,
6:30 Putnam Street, in front of People's Bank Theater.
That's 2 weeks?
It's a Friday of Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, that is 2 weeks from this
Friday.
Past Friday. Yeah.
Yes. Oh man.
So less than 2 weeks from today, but 2 weeks from last Friday.
Wow, it is that soon.
It's coming quick.
I got some work to do.
Yeah, and I'll actually be downtown that night as well.
I hope so, and
try to come check it out.
We're gonna have the full orchestra. We're excited, and they have People's Bank has the stage door. It's kind of like their little bar, so they have the door thing as well.
Yeah,
it should be fun. There's gonna be a lot of good music. It's Pop's concert, so nothing overly classical yet. But the next concert that we're really gearing up for, kind of to go into traditional orchestra land, is November 7th.
Okay.
So November 7th, that Sunday, I believe it's either 3 or 3:30, probably 3, but we can mark.
Well, if we were in Mexico, it would be 3-ish.
Yeah, right. I should have just said that.
That's right.
Afternoon-ish, sometime is right. Way to bring that back.
And they would have been just fine with it, so we should be.
Yeah, right? Oh, man, that is priceless.
Absolutely.
So, But yeah, same with you, actually, because one thing I'm looking for, I don't mean to talk business talk, but if you need help marketing this stuff, our webpage or whatever, we can, I guess, don't have to talk about it on the air, but we can figure out something somehow. Well,
I appreciate it. Well, we could definitely work together for sure.
Have you ever thought about doing one of these live, like at a First Friday?
I have. I have a little work to do to make that happen, but absolutely. I've been really thinking about bringing people up here and letting them see the studio so that they can, kind of see what's going on, because I see people's faces when I tell them, like, I got this YouTube studio, blah, blah. Yeah. They're just like, yeah, whatever,
Well,
and then they walk up and say it, and they're like, oh, my God, what have you done, Well, I'm like,
you saw my face.
Yeah. I was like, oh, did I do something crazy, Like, I just thought I was just doing something normal here, but, so, yeah, I do want to expose it to as many people as I can, and really do something big in Marietta. There's so much talent here.
There is.
So much,
Yeah, there really is.
And part of the reason I feel like some of the athletic talent hasn't made it out of this town is that they have no exposure. There's no scouts coming to look for these students. You know what I mean? And they would if they had any exposure. If they had a YouTube channel that blew, or a YouTube video that blew up, then coaches have to watch that.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it needs to happen in this area, and there's so much, like, there's so many people here trying to grow this area, and just make it more rich.
Yep.
And I don't mean money. I just mean like soulful.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. I'm loving watching it happen for sure, and I'm gonna get a little hard on our government though, because they might want to start catching up with everybody. That's one thing I will say, because the people in this town have done some amazing things, and it's time for the government to step up and help with that.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
And part of why I wanted to start this podcast, and not to beat them up and say they're not doing anything, because they're doing stuff.
Yeah.
But it's time. It's a great time, and it's a great opportunity, I think, for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Back off the politics.
Yeah, I'll talk politics all day.
I do too. I'm gonna try not to too much on here, but yeah, I will too. If we have
Don't
to.
kill it before it starts, man.
No, right?
Just kidding.
All right, we're gonna move on. So, do you ever have any desire or aspiration to write music? If you did, what genre would it be? Classical, jazz, musical theater, or what?
It always has been an idea of mine of, like, maybe going down that path. I just never had the time.
Yeah.
It takes so much time. And
I can't even imagine. I've tried to write just the lyrics of a song because I don't know how to write music. I've tried to write the lyrics. I'm like, I'm not a songwriter.
Yeah,
at all. I would love to, but I'm not.
And there's some amazing ones. I'll tell you what. There's one person that you should interview in the future. His name's Todd Burge.
Yes.
Todd, him and I. You know Todd?
Yeah.
If you need it, yeah. So he's an amazing songwriter. Yeah. Like I talk to him all the time, and he's a good buddy of mine. And but his brain is amazing, and it's built for that.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
Yeah, I have a couple friends like that.
And he's working on a project right now that's about to drop a bomb on this town in a good way. Yeah, awesome. I can't say anything more than that.
I gotta have him on then.
Yeah,
he needs to
I don't know if he'll give it away.
All right,
but his brain is brilliant.
Awesome.
So he's an amazing dude too.
All right.
But yeah, definitely.
Try to get him on here.
Yeah, for me though, it's just not my thing. I would like to do it maybe one day, one time.
Yeah,
but that's it.
It sounds like a lot of work to me too.
Well, because
I've tried it. I didn't even get halfway through the lyrics, so I can't even imagine what the rest of it would have taken.
I've just been too trained on, like, what my role in the process of how to relay music. And like so. Kind
of that orchestra brain.
Yes, and like so, a lot of people. Ugh, God, this is going to get into something very interesting. So I've been trained as to kind of touching on that selfless way of playing.
Yeah.
and that allows you to get over yourself and make your playing about yourself, so that you can relay the style and the true meaning of the composer's piece to the audience in its most authentic form. There are composers that are more lenient and say, hey, go do what you want, but then there's composers that are like, nope, this is my way, this is how it sounds, boom. And so that's just kind of the mentality that I come from, and so I'm so ingrained in being that middle part of that.
Yeah.
For right now in my life, that maybe down the road, who knows? But that's where I am.
Well, that sounds like a good mindset to be in the role that you're in. I mean, as president, you know what I mean? I think that's a great mindset.
Well, it's been really interesting too, because I play in the group.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, I was thinking about this. I'm like, how many presidents of orchestras probably like come up to give the welcome talk, and they're like, well, I guess I'll just go sit in the
find my seat.
Yeah. Bye. I gotta go do my job now. The other one. I'm like, I don't know if that's really been a thing ever. It cracks me up. Like, what's that going to look like on stage? Like, I don't know. Right. I mean, I've done it in front of the Armory, for First Fridays, and I don't know. People are like, "Oh, you're the president of the orchestra. Oh, you're going to play?" And like,
well, I can see him saying like, the orchestra guy is the clarinet guy is the president?
Yeah, like, what is this?
What's the drummer doing over there? Come on, dude, step up. No.
And, well, actually, our concert master, the first violinist, is our VP now, too. Very nice. And he's amazing. Him and I are like a 1-2 punch, man. Like, nice. He has just as much energy as I do, and cool. It's wild. But, so, that's basically where all that comes from.
Well, I would say another one that I would definitely come to, as far as like if you're doing movies and playing for movies, Wizard of Oz.
Yeah,
huge fan of that movie.
Man,
I've seen so many different like renditions of it, and
I'll tell you what,
musical changes of it. That love that movie.
That score is fun to play. Actually, I did that with the West Virginia Symphony maybe 5-6 years ago. Yeah, it was one of the most fun scores I've ever played.
I bet
it was amazing.
Yeah,
but you know what? They had a sold-out house.
I bet
people loved it, and they made money. I'm not saying the classical stuff doesn't make money, but when they don't really know what classical music is,
right,
you got to get them in the door.
Yeah,
and at least that's how I think. I don't know, but probably my board will see this interview and they'll be like, "Chris, we don't want you to be president anymore." I'm like, Leslie, you're not supposed to laugh that loudly over there. Get out of here.
Oh man. Well, let's hope they don't. Maybe wrong. I feel like everything you're saying sounds like the right idea to me. I mean, for me, like, I'm the same way. Like, if this way I'm pushing is not working, or if the last guy pushed this direction and I'm supposed to be the new leader, and it wasn't working the way he was pushing, then why would I keep pushing that direction?
And that's the thing. I don't even know if I would say if it wasn't working. I think it was more of a thing of like, I mean, he got 24 years older, and it just became tiring. And I have the utmost respect for him. I mean, Mac looked at me like, we're actually doing a legacy project for him. Nice. A bunch of interviews. I'm naming an endowment in his name.
Nice.
To hopefully, long term raise a ton of money down the road for the orchestra. We wouldn't be here without him. And so, like it's not working. It's such an interesting thing, like, because there's so many ways you can go with that. But I know exactly.
I guess what I mean is that
I know what you meant.
Wasn't working like it could be.
Exactly, and I think and I'm just the type of person that I hate mediocrity.
Yeah, me too.
I absolutely despise it.
Yeah, we're gonna hang out a lot, by the way. Yeah,
good.
I hate it too.
I just don't understand it.
I don't either.
I don't get it. It doesn't make sense in my brain. Like I don't get it at all. And so, like,
I piss a lot of people off with my lack of the understanding of mediocrity. I just go all out.
That just means you're secure.
You're just showing us all up. Yeah, there's like, you're just showing us all up. Well, then step up. I don't know how to go less. You know what I mean? I'm sorry.
I can relate, man.
Yeah.
And so
we're gonna hang out a lot. I can tell.
Sounds good. Can't wait to. Well, I guess I was gonna say golf course, but then you get the choice. But then you get the choice of which one.
Like I said, don't judge. Like the shortest one you can find, like the least par 4s or 5s.
We'll do 9 holes, like this golf, and then we'll do 9 holes of your golf.
That would be fair. Yeah, because but let's do the disc golf after, so that I can like redeem myself from the horrible golf round.
Cool. That's good.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I do have the capability to mute this mic for a minute. I know I need a bathroom break.
Sure.
And let me do that. All right, guys, we're just going to take a break for a minute. We'll be right back.